I don't know if he's on now already or not. You got, no, not yet? Well, we'll hear from him if he's on then. And so, coming to the adoption of the agenda, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, can I have a mover? Okay, Mark?
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Everybody in favor? That's carried. Then we'll move on to the council minutes of December 13th. Are there any errors or omissions that anybody found? Okay, if not, okay, John? John's moved the...
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that the minutes be adopted or accepted as presented.
Okay, thank you, John. So, and then at this moment, we have, oh no, just a minute. Everybody in favor? Okay, thanks. Just bear with me, you guys. You'll find a mistake here and there. But so then, right now, I think we got delegations at 9:30, and that is from the Green Acres Foundation, and they are going to be on team. Do we have connection?
Looks like so.
Who do we have there? It's going to be Donna. Donna, can you hear us? Donna, can you hear us?
I can hear Joe.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much for giving the presentation here at our council meeting today. And I will start out with, and you are, I'll introduce you as Donna Kozlofi. Is that correct? Or did I butcher your name? Okay. So we'll just go around the table a minute here with the councillors. I'm the Deputy Reeve Klaus van der Veen, and I'm from District 6. John?
I'm John Kurbis, and I'm the councillor for Division 4.
Mark Sayers, councillor for Division 3.
Staff wants to...
Morris East of Division 7.
Lornicky, Division 1.
Eric Van Essen, Division 5.
Okay, thank you. Are you familiar with our staff?
Just by written.
Okay. And I see you have somebody else there present too? And who?
Councillor Jeff Carlson from Lethbridge, Board Chair of Green Acres.
Okay, welcome to our meeting here. Okay, now then I would probably ask whoever's going to give the presentation that they are welcome to do so.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. My sound review.
Yeah, I got my mic on. I just, it's the person that is going to give the presentation, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you so much, Deputy Reeve, councillors, and members of administration. I want to thank you for allowing us a few minutes on your agenda to present. First and foremost, Happy New Year, and congratulations on your election and re-election. Congratulations all. As I said earlier, I'm Jeff Carlson. I'm the current chair of the Green Acres Foundation board. With me today is our CEO, Donna Kozlofi. And we just wanted to present to give you a little bit of information about Green Acres and sort of touch base. As I'm sure most of you are aware, Green Acres Foundation is governed by a 9-director board, which is appointed by our 7-member municipalities. Once elected, our fiduciary duty is to the foundation in general, rather than to our individual facilities or Lauren for many years, and I look forward to working with him on the Green Acres Board, so thank you for that. I should let you know that every year, the board does undertake a strategic planning exercise where we do confirm and explore our mission, vision, values, and set our key strategic priorities. And from that, we create our annual business plan. The foundation's mission is to provide affordable housing, quality services responsive to the needs of all of our clients and residents. Our 5 key pillars in our strategic plan are raising our organizational profile in the area, being a great place to live, a great place to work, ensuring organizational sustainability, and of course, key alliances and partnerships. And that's why we're here today. Our strongest alliances and partnerships are with our member municipalities, and we want to sort of introduce ourselves shortly after your election and give you a chance to ask any questions. Donna, our CEO, is the brains, heart, and soul of the organization. So I'm going to turn it over to Donna to give you folks just a little bit of an overview of Green Acres. So Donna?
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you again on behalf of Green Acres for allowing us this time. For some of you, I know you know about Green Acres, but for those newly elected members, we want to just give you a little bit of a history. And Green Acres has been around since 1960. Back in 1960, we were established by an order in council from the provincial government. And at that time, the government went around to different municipalities and said, okay, we need to have seniors housing in your area. You do have it, as, you know, they looked at the demographics and they said, hey, we need to have some seniors housing. And so municipalities were able to join if they wished. And, you know, we're pleased to, and you guys should be proud too. The county was part of the first establishment of Green Acres Foundation. There were 4 municipalities, with county and the Lethbridge as being the top 2 big ones, that just determined that yes, this was a need in this area. So thank you. For 61 years later, we're still going strong. We were also the first in the province to get one of the first lodges, and that lodge was called Green Acres Lodge, of course, and it was located right adjacent to the Galt Museum. It is no longer there now. It is in its place. We have the Pemmican Lodges, a much larger structure that we did in 1999. But from our humble beginnings, we started with one little lodge, and now we're up to about 1,000 housing units, mainly in Lethbridge, but we also have housing units in Coaldale, Pitcher Butte, Barons, and Nobleford. So we do serve the needs of your constituents. We do take people from the county because the county doesn't have any kind of seniors housing. So they get the opportunity of, depending where they want to be, we do take people from the county around Pitcher Butte because that's their area. And then coming into Lethbridge and Coaldale, of course. And as I said, we've got close to 1,000 units. We provide housing from every level of housing. So we have apartment buildings, and that's for seniors that are totally independent. So they do their own housekeeping, their own food, you know, their own cooking and things like this. So what we supply those folks is the maintenance. So they no longer have to snow shovel and things like this. Excuse me. And then we have the lodges. Then we also have care facilities. So we are very proud of the fact that in the country, especially at Pitcher Butte and Coaldale, we have every level of care. We go right up to a dementia care or secure unit. So the folks out there, as their needs progress and the frailties become more acute, they can remain in that same facility and get the services without having to be moved to Lethbridge or to another municipality to get the services that they need. So we're proud of that, and it's certainly a wonderful thing for those facilities and for the seniors around those areas, because they get to age in the area that they are familiar to. And that's very important. We really, our board has always been very, very passionate about So that's just a little bit about that. Excuse me. You know, when you clear your throat or anything, now with COVID, it's like, but seriously, I just got something in my throat. Under the Alberta Housing Act, we fall under the Alberta Housing Act, and so we have requisition authority. And that is given to us under a legislation. And so you'll notice on your tax bills, there is a green acres line. So we will send your manager, your county manager, the requisition amount, and that is determined by this board of directors here. And your requisition, it is the second highest. Of course, we do have an equalized assessment, so of course, the city of Lethbridge is the highest requisition amount. But the county, because of your equalized assessment, you are the second. And it's similar to a school board tax. So, you know, if every taxpayer in Alberta pays to some foundation for seniors housing. So this is not unique down to for this area.
So, thank you so far. And council, are there any questions that you would have for Donna or Jeff? Morse?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it an age limit to when you can enter into the foundation, like for the care?
Asking for a friend.
I didn't hear you, John.
Yes, and I do realize that, you know, you do take those people in, and I still remember you guys having some people there that had MS and people in situations like that, and I've heard nothing but good things about the Green Acres Foundation and what they have done. And so what I heard that you were going to remodel or do some building in Picture Butte in the Piami. Is that still on schedule, or?
Thank you, Deputy Reed.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and I think that, you know, if we do see our MLAs or whatever, that we do mention it to them, that, you know, that this is a priority. And are there any more questions? Ann?
Thank you, Donna. It's Ann Mitchell. I'm the CAO here at Lethbridge County. I just had a question about the total capital build of the project. You mentioned that the Green Acres Foundation are contributing $1 million. What is the total cost of the entire project?
Well, unfortunately, when we first did this, it was around 8 million, because that's how long ago that we did it. Now with these new prices and the cost of construction now, it's around 13 million.
Thank you.
And I was wondering if you're gonna offer us a check.
No.
We're saving.
But I do think there is supportive letters, obviously, that we could write in support of the project, and certainly mention this to our MLAs when we do meet with them.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate that. We've had lots of excellent meetings with all the MLAs in the area, as well as Minister Pond, in charge of seniors and housing. But the more people saying from the same song book is appreciated. So we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there any more questions here for Green Acres? Pardon me? Yeah, Tori, would you have any questions there?
No, thank you very much, though. Sorry, I was having some difficulties logging on, but thank you very much for your presentation. Much appreciated, and very appreciative of all the great work you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm assuming that's Reed Campbell?
Yes, that was Reef Gamut, and he's unable to be here today, so.
Nice to almost see you. Anyways, folks, unless there's any further questions, we just appreciate the time you've given us. Just to let you know, we are passionate about our residents, our staff, and especially our communities that we operate in. So we wanted to take the time to make the connection, let you know who we are, what we do. If there's any way we can assist each other, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you very much.
And I would like to thank Donna and Jeff for your tremendous work that you guys are doing, and looks like you guys are doing an awesome job there. So thank you very much, and I hope we'll talk some other time again.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, can we have a motion here to move this as information? Okay, Lauren? Yep, Lauren moves this for information. Everybody in favor? That's carried. Okay, then we'll move on to subdivision application 2021-0-195, Peterson, Watmough, northwest a quarter of 14-9-22, west of the 4th Medarium. And I think, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Reeve. I'm doing well this morning. Nice to see everybody back into the swing of things here in 2022. So this morning we have two subdivision applications to present to you. The first one is subdivision application 2021-0-195. And it's a lot line reconfiguration, as you probably noted from your agenda package. The maps for this particular subdivision are located on pages 7 through 10 of this particular report. As you'll note, the application was received to reduce the size of an existing parcel and reconfigure the boundaries through subdivision and consolidation. The applicant is wishing to subdivide off 20 acres from a 30-acre parcel and consolidate the agricultural lands to the title to the south, owned by Mr. Watmough, so that title will then increase to a size of 126.23 acres. And the residual title will then be 10 acres in size, and it will be used for country residential use. This particular proposal does meet the subdivision criteria of the county's land use bylaw, and I will let Steve go through the other planning comments and the recommendation.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this application in front of you, as described, is to do a parcel boundary adjustment between two adjacent parcels. There is an existing 30-acre country residential parcel, and they're looking to reduce that to the westerly portion where the built-up yard is, which will reduce it to about 10 acres in size. There's a dwelling and yard in that portion. And then the east rear of the parcel, where there's some agricultural land adjacent to the start of the coulee draw, will be consolidated to the south agricultural title. That landowner has been farming a portion of that for the acreage owners for the last number of years, and they wish to purchase that land now. The east portion being subdivided and consolidated to the south consists of a little bit of the cultivated farmland, and then the start of the coulee draw there where there's some brush and such. This is a little background. The 30 acreage title was created under some different legislation in 1987 as an agricultural small holding. That was a policy that was just in place for a few years. There was a few parcels around the county created on that, not very many. But that policy wasn't around very long. There's an existing older farmyard with the dwelling at the very west end there, which will remain on the 10-acre parcel. Its servicing will remain unaffected. The septic system and tank field system won't be affected by the boundary adjustment. It will stay on the 10-acre with the dwelling. The current access to the yard, as you can see, is to the west of Highway 25. That will remain unchanged with the application. And Alberta Transportation, in their comments as part of circulation, has no objections or concerns with this reconfiguration, and there's no special requirements for access to Highway 25. One of the other things as part of the application is, due to its location in the coulees there, it is an area that's flagged by the province as a potential historic resource of an assigned 5 category. So with that, normally for a HRV, historical resource category 5, you don't usually have to apply for historical resource clearance. Since the agenda package went out to you, we did receive comments back from the province, from Alberta Culture, and they have no objections or concerns with the subdivision, and they won't require Historical Resource Act approval by the applicants. One of the other items to note is this application is situated within the IDP Intermunicipal Development Plan boundary area of the city of Lethbridge, so it's circulated to them as well. This is in planning area 2 of that plan, which does allow for reconfiguration of titles. And the city of Lethbridge commented also that they have no objections or concerns with the subdivision. So with that, the proposal does meet the county's subdivision policy for a reconfiguration, realignment of titles, a property line adjustment in a sense between the two, to just swap in the land and the acres between them. As well, the country residential parcel going down to 10 acres in size actually better conforms to your country residential policy, which has the 10-acre maximum. So being reduced from the 30 to the 10 acres conforms with that. And as part of the process, the agricultural title will be slightly enlarged. So with it meeting those policies, I have recommended approval to you. There's been no objections or concerns received in the referral process. The conditions for that, on the original draft that I sent out, there was 6 conditions on there. The standard that the taxers are paid up to date, and number 2, the development agreement entered if required. The 3rd condition would be that they submit a plan of survey that conforms to the approval. The 4th is the condition that the consolidation be done of that rear 20 acres to the south Watmough's title by a plan of survey, so it can't be a standalone title. And then the 5th, that any easements are required. Since we were a little bit slow getting some comments back over the Christmas break there, But since I have got comments back from TELUS, ATCO, Fortis, and also the LNID, and there's no objections or concerns, and none of the utility companies require an easement. As well, I had a draft condition on there, number 6, that talked about any conditions of arboriculture and status of women regarding the Historical Resource Act clearance, but we don't require that condition anymore because they have no conditions and no objections to the proposal. The other item on here for an approval would be dealing with Municipal Reserve. When that small holdings, 30 acres, was created, there was a deferred reserve caveat put on title. At the time, they didn't take it and said, we'll take it in the future. So I am recommending to you now that with this kind of reconfiguration, that they pay that deferred reserve caveat on the 10 acres that's going to the acreage, on the basis now that this 30 acres likely won't be re-subdivided again. And with that land going to the agricultural land, that they'll just pay that off and we'll clean it off the title. Because otherwise, if the deferred reserve caveat stays on there, with likely no future subdivision, the county will lose out on that municipal reserve. There won't be an opportunity to take it in the future, likely. So the recommendation is to just have them paid on the 10 acres and then discharge it off the title. So with those conditions on there, and the other thing too is I got the market value back on the municipal reserve, which I didn't have prior to the package coming out, and that came in at $10,000 per acre that they'd have to pay on the 10 acres. So with those conditions on there, Mr. Chair, the recommendation is to approve it.
Okay, thank you, Steve and Hillary, for that. Are there any questions? Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little confused by the names on the map as compared to the way the subdivision is laid out on page 8. Like, is that incorrect up there?
No.
Well, then
Mr.
where-
Peterson is the 30-acre parcel,
Yeah.
highlighted in blue. Mr. Watmough is the agricultural title to the south.
So who's the little piece there that's...
That was a separate acreage that was completed a number of years ago.
So that's
This is-
not part of the new
No.
acreage?
No.
Because it looks like it on the map.
It's just this Mr. Peterson's lot, as outlined on the map on the screen here, outlined in blue, is the 30-acre title. This little acreage along the highway is not included in this subdivision.
Either one of them?
No.
Oh, okay.
You can point out the yard right there. Then.
And the yard for this lot is right here.
Yeah, you got a follow-up, Lauren?
Just a question. A few years ago, we had a realignment and amalgamation of titles from Watmough's. Is that close to this?
That one.
Or is that a little further west?
It's not in this
Yeah,
particular
yeah,
quarter
it's-
section, through the chair.
I think that was more south.
I don't know rightfully so where that alignment would be at this time. Watmough's have a bunch of land in this
Yeah.
particular area,
Yeah.
so.
It was close to the highway.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is just in regards to, is there any difference in the taxes that would be collected off of these properties, positive or negative for the county?
Typically, the taxes, through the chair to Councillor Kerberos, is that the taxes don't change. They would still be based off of the improvements on the land. So the residential title would probably have a similar tax rate as it would today, because they would have been taxed on their residence, plus the agricultural land would have had a nominal rate to it for the agricultural lands. So there would be an exchange of the agricultural lands would now be tied to the larger title to the south, and the acreage would have the residential tax rate. So it would probably remain about the same.
Answer your question, John? Or?
Well, just a small follow-up on that. Because agricultural land is capped and we're on a market values system, if that moves from one to another, then, and appreciating it's probably not a large amount, but wouldn't we be losing the taxes from that extra portion?
We would have to call in the assessor for that particular question, Mr. Chair, but just when we've done these lot line readjustments before, the tax difference has been negligible.
Okay, thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, the other thing too, Mr. Chair, that I should maybe reiterate as well is that under the planning law in Alberta, on the subdivision decisions, you're not allowed to, tax considerations is not a legal subdivision decision. You can't use that as a reason to deny or approve a subdivision. You can take that into consideration at the larger planning picture, like let's say if you're creating an area structure plan for an area, and you know there's going to be a number of lots there, like say you're doing Broxburg Business Park, and you say, well, yeah, this is good for the county because we're going to get 30 industrial lots there, and that's good for the tax base. But once you go through those processes of rezoning land the development process or through subdivision, once you get down to the subdivision level, the decisions have to be based on the land use policies and the suitability of the land, and you can't use taxes. That's something that's been struck down in the courts. That's not a legitimate planning. So it's something, I guess, in the big picture we look at, but when we come down to the actual subdivision of land, and that's why you don't see that as a thing on, it's not a legitimate planning thing to turn down or even approve a subdivision based on tax. I know sometimes guys say, yeah, we'll approve that because it's good tax base, you know, for this industrial lot or something we were doing, but it's actually not a legitimate reason. We have to go by the subdivision development regulation based on the suitability of the land. We're looking at servicing, soil capability, and all those sorts of things. So.
Okay, are there any more questions? If not, could I have a mover?
I'd move, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that the subdivision application number 2021-0-195 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution presented.
Any discussion? If not, everybody in favor? That's carried. Now we'll go to subdivision application 2021-0-197, de Wilde, at the east half of 16-10-23- west of the 4th Mederium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this next subdivision application is located just to the northeast of the hamlet of Monarch. And as mentioned, it's in the east half of 16-10-23 west of the 4th. This application is looking to subdivide out a 3.78 acre, which would be the first yard out of the quarter section. As shown on your agenda package is on pages 6 through 9. It shows the subdivision itself. You will notice just kind of one additional thing, and Steve will probably touch on this a little bit in his planning comments, but it does include this odd title that is to the north here. I do believe that is a 40-acre title to the north. Steve might know the history on when that was created, but the de Wildes are proposing to consolidate this 40-acre parcel on the north end of their title together.
20 acres.
Sorry, 20-acre title, not 40. 20 acres to their title, and then subdividing out the yard on the southwest corner for country residential use. So just in case you're wondering why this looks a little bit bigger than what your normal quarter section is, that is kind of the reasoning behind that. They just wanted to clean it up and have it as a singular title. So with that, I will let Steve go through the planning comments and the recommendation.
Hey, Mr. Chair, as explained in this application, we kind of got two things going on. The first is that I guess their main focus of the applicant is to subdivide out their existing yard in the very southwest corner of the quarter section. The yard contains the owner's dwelling. There's a detached garage, some other minor improvements on there. As you can see from the diagram, the proposed property line for the subdivision on the north side is angled to account for the irrigation pivot system on the remnant agricultural land. This parcel, the access is provided from the South Municipal Road allowance. In reviewing the application as well, you can see that in this area there's a number of confined feeding operations in the vicinity. In getting the permit numbers and measuring the required minimum distance separation that we applied to acreage subdivisions, it meets and exceeds any of the required MDS. As an example, for the closest one, 390 meters is required and over 1,315 meters exists, so it's almost 3 times the distance that's required. The one that is the closest there, I guess, to the west, that is the applicant's, the owner's own confined feeding operation. It's their own operation next to their residence there. At one time, the operators were exempt from the application of the MDS. That changed a number of years ago with some policy changes that the MDS was also to apply to the applicant owner. However, this application does meet another MDS policy in that on the basis that if the yard was pre-existing to the confined feeding operation or the minimum distance separation rule coming into effect, that there was an exemption based on the pre-existing conditions. So, and that's what this application falls into, is that pre-existing exemption policy. As Hillary mentioned, the owners also have, it's an old historic 19.8 to be exact acre parcel to the north of this. As just part of doing this application and for their own, I guess, personal family situation to kind of clean up the land, they are proposing to consolidate that north 19.8 acres into the remnant quarter section for the southeast of 161023. They have an irrigation pivot on there. There's no fencing or anything between the parcels, and they farm it and they irrigate it all as one unit. It doesn't maybe show very well in the photo here, maybe hard to tell, but they actually extend the pivot up into that north area, so it's all irrigated and it's all farmed together. So they're looking just to consolidate that as part of their holdings onto one title, agricultural title. Also, by doing that, it conforms to a second county policy that they are starting with 2 titles, and in the end, they'll end up with 2 titles of land with the yard there. One of the other little things, I guess, to pay attention to, as you can maybe see in the agenda report and my comments there when I talked about alternatives, I just mentioned that if you see in the diagrams, there is a little bit of space on the west side of the proposed parcel that the proposed property line they're proposing anywhere from 6.5 to 7 3/4 meters away from the quarter section line, and that's to account for private access, kind of a dirt trail access in there that their family they use as part of access to the adjacent livestock operation. You know, if you wanted the parcel squared right to the quarter section line, they want to continue that access just to leave everything the way it is, the way it's developed out, and not physically move anything. So if you're to do that, then that would require an easement to be registered between them in order to traverse, have access, egress over that access area that they use to get into the feedlot, whatever. Or you can just, if you're approving the yard, just leave it as they applied for and just have that 7 or so meters on the west side there is kind of the access left with the quarter section. So during the circulation of this application, there was no objections or concerns received. Since I sent it out, I have received comments from TELUS, Fortis, ACO. None of those utility companies require any easements, and they have no concerns with the application. The LNID also commented on it. and they can accommodate on the agricultural land the consolidation and the I guess change with the irrigation situation between the two parcels there, and the turnout. They just have to deal with the LNAD on that, but the LND has no objections to the proposal. So overall, the parcel aligns with the land use bylaw policies that allows the one subdivision per quarter section. This will be the first subdivision out of that quarter section. It meets the parcel size at your 3.78 acres. It exceeds your 2 acre minimum and doesn't exceed the 10 acre maximum. And as I explained on the CFOs and the minimum distance separation, it aligns with those policies for subdivision as well. So with that, I have a recommended approval to you with the originally when I sent the package out, it had 5 conditions: the taxes, development agreement, the consolidation of the land, a final plan of survey be submitted based on your approval, and then any easements. However, no easements are required. But those would be the conditions of approval if approving it.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Are there any questions? If not, it seems like this is a straightforward one then. And so can I have, Tori, do you have any questions?
He moved it.
We can't hear.
It's sorry, it was just overlapping. It takes, there's a little gap sometimes, so that was still Steve talking.
Oh,
Tori.
okay.
Tori at the same time. You're good, Tori? You're good, Tori?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that said, so can I have a mover? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the SD application number 2021-0-197 be approved subject to conditions outlined in the draft resolution.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more discussion on this? If not, can I have a show of hands who's in favor? Okay, that's carried. Then we will now go to the, since there's no public hearings today, we will move on to department reports. And so we've got community services here, and we're looking for a first reading of the bylaw 22001, Lethbridge County Municipal Development Plan.
I'll just let you finish signing there, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Hillary.
So I'm pleased to present to you today Bylaw 22-001, being the Lethbridge County Municipal Development Plan, and this is for first reading. The current municipal development plan that the county has was approved by County Council in 2010. In reviewing the document, it was determined that the municipal development plan needed to be updated and modernized to reflect the current strategic direction of Lethbridge County. And this is typical in most municipalities. Municipal development plans typically are, have a 5-year review period, and then every 10 years, typically it is redone to ensure that it is aligning with any new policy direction or strategic plans that County Council and the county of a whole have agreed to. So with regards to the proposed municipal development plan, I'll just give you some background. A number of council here weren't involved in the whole entire process, just more so on the back end. In January of last year, the Lethbridge County Administration began the consultation and review process for the new MDP, Municipal Development Plan, as the current one had been around for 11 years. As I mentioned before, typically an MDP should be reviewed every 5 years with a complete review every 10 to 15 years to ensure that it meets the county's strategic direction. The updated municipal development plan has a format that we that is more user-friendly and provides clear policy direction for development. The municipal development plan has been split into 5 main sections. with part one just being a brief introduction. This section reviews the legislative requirements, so the provincial requirements of the Municipal Government Act, and provides an overview. Part two, just the community overview. We greatly reduced this part of the municipal development plan just because these types of statistics that are usually included in here are stale dated quite quickly. Statistics obviously change on a year-to-year basis or even in less time. So we kept this overview quite brief, just looking at the geography and some notable statistics, just to provide some context to the plan. Part three is the overall vision, and this is where County Council and administration over in the first few meetings that we had in 2021 looked at the guiding principles for the municipal development plan to kind of give myself an idea of where we were heading in terms of the direction for this plan. Part four is the kind of the meat and potatoes of the document, looking at the plan policies. This section is the main part of the plan and provides policies for the different areas, including agriculture, general land use and development, subdivision, residential development, commercial and industrial development, infrastructure and servicing, policies related to the environment, alternative and renewable energy, economic development, and intermunicipal and regional collaboration. And so those were the sections that we went through over time with County Council and that we brought out to the public in our public consultation. And then the last section of the MDP is the implementation. And this section looks at how the municipal development plan shall be used and provides a review schedule. As part of the review and consultation, I worked with Steve Hardy, and we had 5 workshops with County Council to review and discuss the different aspects of the municipal development plan. In addition, 6 articles were written and published into the Sunny South News and onto the county's What's Happening Lethbridge County webpage. These articles provided the details on certain aspects of the municipal development plan and provided county residents and landowners with the opportunity to learn more about the municipal plan process and how to get involved. The final draft of the municipal development plan was posted on the county's website, and notices were sent out to the relevant provincial agencies and adjacent municipalities for the review. I will also note that we did have one section of this municipal development plan, we did have a more pointed consultation with the confined feeding operations, and particular to their proximity to hamlets. One of the questions that was asked is just ensuring that we are keeping our focus for development is around hamlets for residential development, and so we wanted to ensure that we were creating an adequate distance between any new confined feeding operations and those hamlets. You may question then, well, what about the towns and city? Those distances have already been established through our intermunicipal development plans with each of those municipalities individually. So those ones were already taken care of in those particular documents. So we were just looking at more of the hamlets and our residents that we have within our municipality. And we did gain some good feedback from that and did some amendments to the plan accordingly. So with that, that is a very brief synopsis of this plan and the process that we took to date to get it to this point. It is anticipated that we will have the public hearing for this municipal development plan on March the 10th of this year, just to allow for enough time to get comments back from those adjacent municipalities and any agencies as required. I would recommend that first reading of the bylaw does occur for the main reasons that the proposed municipal development plan does meet the Municipal Government Act requirements, and it aligns with the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. It has been vetted through County Council, and also we have done some consultation with the public to ensure that there is no areas that have concern. And also that the proposed municipal development plan does meet the strategic goals of Lethbridge County and provides a policy framework for development moving forward. Alternatively, County Council could refuse first reading of the bylaw. The issue that may occur with this is that the existing municipal development plan is outdated and would remain in place, and at some point in time it is prudent for a municipality to update these documents to ensure that There's no conflict between other strategic plans, say such as an intermunicipal development plan, or that is offside with regards to any provincial legislation or even federal legislation. So with that, as mentioned, I will recommend approval for this first reading of Bylaw 22-001. And I will put it back to you, Mr. Chairman, if council wants to have any discussion.
Thank you, Hillary. Any questions? Morse?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we consulted with all the neighboring municipalities, and we went to it. I think we didn't miss any of it. And was there any concerns? I thought there was one place down there, and the ratepayer from Willow Creek, they brought up some sort of a concern. Can you remember what it was, Hillary?
I don't recall that we had, Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Zeenstra, I don't recall that we had any concerns. We had a concern from one of the greenhouse operators out by Picture Butte, just with regards to how we had a policy with regards to greenhouses. We did amend that as County Council, upon reviewing their request for an amendment, saw that there could be a change. But with regards to the adjacent municipalities, I've had no one mention any concerns with regards to the content of the plan. Most adjacent all of adjacent municipalities have an intermunicipal development plan, which is a higher level document. So I think we've satisfied many of the concerns through those. I know that we'll probably receive some comments and respond to them and ensure that our documents align accordingly.
Okay, are there any more questions for Hillary? Tori, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I think I would just echo some of the sentiment that has already been said. I think this is a relatively large undertaking, and I know it was a lot of work for Hillary and Steve, and I think that the sessions that you provided, the workshops you provided for council to work through this were beneficial, and as Hillary just noted, there were concerns brought forward, and I think it was a great opportunity for council to sit down and address those concerns. So thank you to the staff and Steve and everyone that put a lot of work into this. I think it was a big undertaking when it was necessary, and glad to be moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So now I would like probably a mover to go ahead with the first reading. Okay. Mark?
I move that the Municipal Development Plan Bylaw 22-001 be read for the first time.
Any discussion on that? If not, everybody in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Hillary.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman and council.
So now we're moving to Fire Services Response Fees Request. Good morning, Larry.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Council, thank you. As noted, we're looking at Fire Services Response Fees Waiver Request Report. I'll just briefly summarize the report for everyone's benefit. The background information really is simply that the Colehurst Fire Department responded to a vehicle fire in the county back in late September. The response lasted just under 5 hours. And as per the schedule of fees bylaw that the county has in place, the owner, Mr. Cormos, was invoiced for the response in the amount of $2,912. The actual cost to the county for this response was just under $3,200, so a little bit under $300 more than what we're looking to recover via the invoice from the owner. The unfortunate part about this, Mr. Chairman and Council, is that the gentleman in question had his vehicle stolen from a private property in the county. He states that he was using this vehicle on a farm property located in the county, and it was strictly for farm use, would not go off the private property and onto public roads, and therefore he chose not to have insurance on it. He did discuss this matter with our manager of fire services and kind of appealed to him, but of course he doesn't have the authority to waive or reduce that fee, so he provided the only recommendation he really could, or the only other option for this gentleman, and that was to write a letter to council. That letter is attached to this report. I think it's quite a well-written letter. I'm sure you've all had the chance to have a look at it. I think it kind of outlines his position and where he's coming from. He was a victim of crime, which is most unfortunate, of course. Administration's position, however, is such that the bylaws are in place. You know, we try to be as flexible and lenient in interpreting and applying the bylaws as we reasonably can. But in this case, we believe the bylaw is in place there for a reason. And our recommendation today, Mr. Chairman, is that the request to waive the service fees of $2,912 as per the invoice for Mr. Cormos be denied. Now, a couple options here, of course, are simply that to deny the request. That would be in line with the fees and charges bylaw, and it would also place the responsibility for most of the response costs on that owner, and does not lead to any kind of precedent setting to the broader community that council will routinely and regularly waive legitimate fees as per our established bylaws. The drawback, of course, there is simply in this case, it would appear that the gentleman in question will be out of pocket for paying this invoice to Lethbridge County. Another option, of course, is simply to waive the invoice entirely or perhaps reduce it, and that'll obviously ease the financial burden on the property owner who did not have, again, proper insurance or any kind of insurance apparently for this vehicle in place. But that places the burden of paying for the response on the county's property tax scheme or regimen. Financial impact, again, we're looking at $3,186.50 total costs for the call. Most of that, about 90%, could be recovered if the invoice stands and is paid. Otherwise, again, the county will be footing a larger portion of that bill. So again, administration recommends that the request be denied. Again, Mr. Chairman, there's a letter there that I think explains where this gentleman's coming from. Unfortunately, a victim of crime. And that's, I suppose, all we really have to present to you today. And I'll turn it back to you if I may.
Yeah, well, thank you, Larry.
Welcome.
So I think that it's very unfortunate that this all happened, and I will open up the floor for any questions. Mark.
I sympathize with this gentleman because the victims of the crimes nowadays seem to be, there's not a lot there for them, and it's not fair that he's getting hit with this. My question is, does the RCMP or the government not have some type of a fund to cover off on cases of, to cover off for victims? Because it wasn't his fault that his truck was stolen and vandalized and burned. So is there some other avenue that he could follow, or pathway that he could go to recover some of these costs?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Through to Councillor Sayers. I'm not terribly familiar with the, I forget what they call it, Victims Compensation Fund, something like that, that is out there in our world, and sometimes there are funds there to compensate victims of crime when there are no other avenues. I did note and notice in the gentleman's letter that he mentioned he has been met with resistance and yet to have any response with his communications through the RCMP. At the time of the writing of this letter, close to a month ago, it had been 3 months. We're not aware of any development since then. He hasn't reached out back to us, simply awaiting a response. So unfortunately, I don't have a more thorough or better answer for you, Councillor Sayers, but maybe that is some possibility there. There could be some compensation through a victim services fund. Maybe someone else in the room has a greater knowledge or familiarity with that than I, but I don't know too much about it.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Larry, maybe you could just help me out and understand this. If I read Mr. Cormus's letter, he is not a resident of the county. Does he actually own any land in Lethbridge County?
Not that I'm aware of, but we didn't confirm that. The property in question, though, there's nothing to suggest that he owns that property. He's just somehow part of the farming operation. And as well, Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Hickey, this gentleman did speak with our manager of fire services, may have, said some other details that I'm unaware of, and I don't know if there's anything further to add there, but
I'm just kind of curious whether it was stolen from where he lives and taken up there and set on fire, or was it up there and they set it on fire there? I'm just kind of curious.
Okay, we got, Byron, would you like to come forward? Linda? Just come to the mic, I mean, it's hard to hear you otherwise.
It's all good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in response to that, I did talk to him personally. He is from out of county. The vehicle was stolen from out of county and brought here and set on fire, and our services responded to that incident.
Go ahead.
So, 'cause I guess maybe I'm confused over the way it says the property owner. So you mean by property, you mean the vehicle,
Correct.
not the actual property.
Correct. The property was a provincial property that the vehicle was set fire on.
And to the other question, I think that if you own any land in the county of Lethbridge County, I think that by the looks of his letter is not that way, because he specifically states that he's a landowner in the Carson County.
Correct.
So just
Laura?
a brief follow-up. It seems like an excessive amount of time to put out a vehicle fire. Is there more to it than just a vehicle fire?
No, it was time from response. Just trying to remember the call. Time from response, they had trouble accessing it because it was inside of a compound and realized that there was access way at the back. So by the time fire services got in there, the thing was with the vehicle fire, it was next to a building, next to fire tanks and stuff like that. So there was a large amount of apparatus responded at first. So the time on the whole call was only about an hour and 3/4 for the apparatus. It was just there was a bunch there because of the situation.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciating, and I feel for Mr. Comos in the sense that, he had his vehicle stolen, so he was a victim of crime, and obviously, the vehicle burning sort of adds insult to injury because he's out that. At the end of the day, this always comes down to choices, in the sense that Mr. Comos had a chance and a choice to actually carry even just minimal insurance on it, which if he'd carried just simple liability insurance on that vehicle, the cost of the fire response would be covered by his liability insurance policy. And, it is one of those situations where, you make small choices in the past that do affect you or potentially could affect you in the future. And that is unfortunate, but, at the end of the day, those are all choices that are individual, and the ramifications of those should be held to the individual, in my opinion.
Okay, Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I clearly feel that the man is, a victim of what happened right down there, and I would like to see us as a county, maybe split that cost between the county and that person, because we're somewhat of a victim too as a county, but he certainly is, and I feel we got insured vehicles on the farm, but they strictly stay in the yard or whatever, and I think a lot of people do, and now this man got caught with that, and I feel that, but me personally, I feel we should split it, county and that Mr. Cummings. Thank you.
But seeing the total cost of it, we did bear just over $300 of cost on this situation already. I just wanted to clarify that.
That's correct.
Oh, yeah, Tori?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think once again everyone's touched on this. Obviously, a difficult situation, an unfortunate situation that this individual was placed in. Obviously, a victim of crime and some unfortunate circumstances, but
Thanks, Tori. Any more questions? So if not, can I have somebody move a motion? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the county council not waive the fire service fee in the amount of $2,912 per invoice number 117436 as requested.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, who's in favor of this motion? And Tori?
In favor.
And who's opposed? Okay, that's carried. Well, I think at this point, we should probably take a 5-minute break, and then we can move on to the external committee appointments. to our meeting. Are we on? Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Sorry, let's continue our meeting with, we'll start with the external committee appointments. And I think Larry's going to give us a background.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there are currently 3 external committees to which Lethbridge County has not appointed any council members to, and to which that normally occurs. There was a bit of a delay at our organizational meeting back in October for various reasons, and we're just recommending today that those positions be appointed. It's good practice to appoint council members to those external committees that the council sees as adding value to the county. And this is particularly important, I think, when the county provides financial support to such committees, as is the case in these 3 committees, which are the Southgrow Regional Initiative, the Highway 3 Twinning Development Association, and the Malloy Drain Steering Committee. What we're looking for here today and recommending, Mr. Chairman, is that there be 1 member appointed to the Southgrow Regional Initiative, that 1 member and 1 alternate member be appointed to the Highway 3 Twinning Development Association, and that 2 members and 1 alternate member be appointed to the Malloy Drain Steering Committee. And you'll recall that on December 16th at the council meeting, administration presented a report to council regarding Southgrow, hopefully answered any unresolved questions or filled in any holes in information that council may have been looking for there. At that meeting, council approved funding to continue its membership in Southgrow and to appoint a member to the board. For everyone's awareness, as far as level of involvement there, meetings are held 4 times per year with Southgrow, and the main commitment is being to obviously prepare for meetings in advance and read the material that may be distributed and attend meetings, and then ultimately report back to council on the proceedings. As well, a delegation from the Highway 3 Twinning Development Association presented to council in early December, the first meeting that was on December 6th. They hold 9 meetings or so per year, and are scheduled to have those 9 meetings in 2022. And again, we're looking for 1 council member and 1 alternate to be appointed there. With respect to the Malloy Drain project, we didn't have any particular update. I think that project has been in place for a long, long time. The council has contributed capital funds to that project. Meetings are held as required, typically about twice a year, so not a great time commitment for any individual council member. Although, again, 2 regular members and 1 alternate should be appointed there. Regarding pros and cons to all 3 of these committees, again, I think it's just important that I think most of us would agree that county has representation on these committees to which they provide significant financial support. No particular negative consequences have been identified for participating on these committees. Option 2, of course, is to forego appointment of council members on 1 or more or any of these committees. But I guess the only advantage, if you want to call it that, is it would reduce the time commitment on behalf of the appointed members. But the drawback, of course, is that council misses the opportunity to have a voice at the table of those important regional collaborative kind of organizations and meetings. And they're intended, of course, to provide direct and indirect benefits to Lethbridge County. So we strongly recommend that members be appointed. Financially speaking, with respect to Southgrow, in 2021, the county contributed $5,078. The fee has gone up, and that was already approved, as I mentioned, by council back in December. For 2022, the membership fee is $8,887. For the Highway 3 Twinning Development Association, the amount for 2022 remains the same as it was in 2021, $3,623. And with respect to the Malloy Drain Steering Committee, I personally don't know too much about that, but we did dig up some of the numbers, and for Phase 1, Lethbridge County committed $175,713 to that big capital project. Phase 2A, the county contributed an additional almost $380,000, the grand total being $555,529. that the county has committed to the Malloy drain. So a very significant contribution on the part of the county, and again, I think highlights rationale for appointing members to that committee. Reasons for our recommendations today, again, I think I've kind of more or less gone over them, but just the county's involved, the county contributes, their regional initiatives, and we see value in having council representation on those three committees. And we recommend that council appoint members to each of them for the following year. And I'll just point out as well, Mr. Chairman and council members, that in the recommendation, you'll see some blanks. And our suggestion is simply that, whoever might be the appropriate person, if supported by council, that name be inserted, and then an individual motion be made for the recommendations to each of the three committees. And that is my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Larry,
You're welcome.
for that report. And I'd like to start out with just asking Eric, have you been updated a little bit on these three committees, or you have no idea of what it is, what you're looking for? Maybe we need a little bit of an explanation here, if that's possible.
Sure. To that point, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Sorry to jump in there, Larry, but.
That's fine.
Just for your sake, Eric, with regards to economic development, the county's involved in economic development Lethbridge. So we do have an appointee on that, and I believe that is Reeve Campbell. And then South Grow is more of a southern regional economic development, and we've been involved in quite a few projects with that. So that's what the appointee is for South Grow. So there already is somebody appointed to economic development Lethbridge, but this one is more regional and covers southern Alberta. So that's that one. The Highway 3 twinning, I'll throw that one back to Larry. I just want to expand on the economic development. Go, Larry.
Sure, thanks. Again, Councillor Van Essen didn't have the benefit of being on council at that time, so missed the presentation. But in a nutshell, I think, and maybe other councillors, other members can expand on this if needed, but the goal is to twin Highway 3, I think all the way from the Crow's Nest Pass, if I'm not mistaken, east to Medicine Hat. Portions have been done. This group brings everyone together in the south who has a stake in seeing that improvement occur. And again, they meet throughout the year, and we had a pretty thorough presentation there. I think we may even have some a report or a copy of their presentation that was given, if that would be of help or interest. But again, in a nutshell, they're the coordinating group that lobbies the provincial government and other agencies for support and funding, and kind of coordinate that overall effort to have Highway 3 twinned for economic development, safety purposes, and so on.
And
I'm sure you're aware that you've seen all the big announcements that we're already going all the way to Burdett. They're doing it to Burdett, so then the next phase would be from there forward to Medicine Hat, I believe.
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay,
Larry.
good for that one. And then the final one, the Malloy Drain Steering Committee. And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I might just defer that to maybe some other staff members who are more, much more closely involved and work directly with that.
Devin will be that staff member. Go
Sure.
ahead, Devin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Malloy Drain Steering Committee, it's comprised of Lethbridge County members, SMRID members, and Town of Coaldale. And basically, the three parties got together to address stormwater issues around the Coaldale area. And that committee was formed to determine how we're going to help to mitigate stormwater and how it's going to be funded. So we've completed phase 1 and 2A to date, and currently 2B is being worked on right now. Town of Coaldale is working on securing land, and they're going to be doing the design this year in hopes of going to construction next year. So we're looking at having another committee meeting hopefully in the first quarter of this year to get the steering committee up to date on progress.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and maybe you can also kind of point out on there how much money is being spent already on the Malloy Drain. Like there was quite a project done already, but it's not complete yet.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Zeenstra. So we've spent about $555,000 to date on phase 1 and 2A, and that's the county's portion. And 2B, we're looking at about $340,000. So between those phases, about $900,000-ish would be the county's contribution.
So that is the county that I also want to know what total cost.
Oh, okay. Yes, sorry. So that share, that 900,000 represents, I believe, a third of 25%, if that makes sense. So 2.7 million kicked in by the three parties, and the remainder would be through funding authorities.
Okay. So before we go ahead with appointing council to it, I just want to remind everybody that, of course, Eric came in later through a by-election, and he does not have any committees to sit on. Do we want to open up a little discussion here on, if it's possible, and maybe I should look at the CEO for that, like if appointing to different committees, that we could trade some stuff? Is that the possibility, or is this the other ones that were appointed, is that written in stone for this year?
There is no issue if somebody wants to step down and we want to put somebody else in, but I would just caution members that once you get involved in a committee, you're part of the group, and pulling somebody out after they've just been appointed and are invested is a bit of a challenge. The other thing I would like to remind council too is that this is not for the whole 4-year term. Every year at the organizational meeting, we do appoint committees, so it would just be from now until October. So to keep that in mind too, it's not like we're appointing you to a committee for the 4-year term. It's just for the remaining time until the organizational meeting in October.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So with that said, I want to have probably a little broader discussion on this. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to suggest maybe we should just finish off this agenda item, and then we can do that after we close off this piece. Does that make sense?
I think it probably has a little bit to do with each other, because if that somebody would give up something in order to volunteer for this.
Yeah, it's kind of interlinked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Dory, do you have any input?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would kind of maybe echo like what you said, Claus. I think the one thing that stuck out to me was maybe looking at the our intermunicipal committees. I thought that might be an opportunity where if there was somebody who's sitting on multiple intermunicipal committees, that might be an opportunity. I think just looking at the list here, it looks like we all do have some obligation in that way, so that might be a good opportunity for Eric. As far as trading or stepping down, I would kind of agree with what the CAO has said. I know if you're already into it this year already, and maybe not the best time to pull out, but I also realize that even in my case, there are a few things that I was appointed to, at least one or two that I was appointed to, where I haven't had to sit to this point. So just balancing both of those, I guess. That would be all I would have for now, Claus. Thanks.
Okay. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at these appointments that are open, is there any consideration taken into location and background knowledge going onto the committees, such as the Malloy Drain? Thinking of myself personally, completely unfamiliar with the Coaldale area and some of the previous work that has been done, whereas someone within the area could bring a wealth of knowledge, background knowledge, to steer such a committee in a better way.
Okay, thank you for that, Eric. So I'll open the floor to the rest of the councillors. What are we thinking? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So did we not have a couple of committees we didn't appoint people to other than this? Like the, say, Nobleford or?
I believe we appointed to everything. These are the only outstanding ones.
Okay.
Correct, Larry?
That's my understanding as well, yes.
Yeah, that is correct. Mark?
I think the understanding with all the IMC committees was just we were regions or area specific. That's to Eric's point. So, Morris and Klaus took over. They signed up for like Coolers, Nobleford, Pitcher Butte, Barons, all those areas. And I think the discussion at the table at the time was that when we get somebody from Division 5 on board, that they could, if these other groups haven't met yet, that they could be, one of those, one of the counselors could step back and then the Division 5 counselor would take it. So I think that was the discussion I recall.
Okay, I had a little discussion with Eric on that, and I did hear that Eric would really appreciate being on the IDP of Nobleford, because that is right in his area, and I don't know if there were any more IDPs that you'd be interested in.
Barron's possibly.
And Barron's, of course, because that's also in your district.
Councillor Zeenstra is the one appointee for Barron's. And for Nobleford is Vanderveen, Curvis, and Zeenstra.
Okay, so I would be willing to pull my name back from Nobleford if Eric would want that one. And
Yes, I'd accept Nobleford willingly.
okay. Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we throwing, things back and forth down here. And just like somebody said earlier down there, by this fall, we're gonna have a good understanding of the committees, what's there, and who likes to be on it. And that's why I would like to move that we just appoint to the three of them what we got in front of us and be done with it. And then whoever, like Eric Consolve down there, he's gonna have a good understanding by next fall down there how things really gonna work, and then we could change. But to change things now, I don't think we should. I think we should deal with the three that we have and appoint a counselor to it and be done with it.
Okay, thank you, Morris. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the regional committees, have any of them actually met? Yeah, so if we did a rearrangement to that, the impact wouldn't be very significant because, we haven't really got together as a committee yet, so there hasn't been really any exchange of information or camaraderie built on that, would be my comment, so.
Okay, I don't really want to drag this on really that long, but I think that we kind of have to come to a consensus here that we can agree with each other on which direction we're going to be going. So with that,
I'll make a motion then, and I'll move that we're gonna go ahead with the appointees on the three of them that we got in front of us down there, and that's it. That's my motion.
okay, so we have a motion on the floor that keep things, the other committees all status quo, and just vote on the appointed councillors for the representative for the John.
I'd like to amend that motion just to include the Nobleford Regional Committee and to deal with that in the sense of you willing to step back and give Eric that position.
Okay, so that is amended. So any discussion on the amendment?
Ask him if it's friendly.
Is it a friendly amendment for you, Morris?
Yeah, no, I can go along with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
then we have a friendly amendment that only the committee of Nobleford would be, the IDP would be changed from me to Eric.
Just a suggestion.
Yes.
We could just make one motion, we should kind of, for clarity's sake, make one motion saying that Councillor Vanderveen will be replaced by Councillor Van Essen, and do that, and then do this separately. That's what I think would be cleaner.
Okay. Can we have a motion to that?
We still,
So, yeah, we got this one on the floor here, so then whatever we do with this one, we'll see at when you do the vote. So, everybody in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so then now, let's go to the other motion. Is anybody willing to make a motion for the switch for Councillor Vanderveen for Councillor Van Essen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that Councillor Van Essen replace Councillor
Van der Veen?
Van der Veen, thank you. Adam Green. On the Interdevelopment Committee for Nobleford.
Okay, any discussion on that? Everybody in favor? That's carried. Okay, then now we shall go on with the recommendation that staff put forward for the appointments of South Grow and Highway 3 and the Malloy Drain. Mark?
I'd be happy to sit on the South Grow committee. I was on the FCSS and conflict arose and I wasn't able to attend, so Lauren took it over for me. I hadn't attended a meeting yet, so he stepped into that, so I just feel that I needed to step up and take another committee on.
So any more nominations? Any more nominations?
I'm interested in sitting on the Highway 3 Twinning Association.
We'll deal with one at a time a minute, and then we'll go to the Highway 3 then. Okay, so I'll ask one more time, is there any more nominations? If not, I guess, thank you, Mark, then you're appointed to,
You just
yeah.
have to make a motion and everybody has to vote on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, John, you make a motion?
I move that Councillor Saras be appointed as the council representative on the South Grove Regional Initiative Committee.
Okay, one moment, I want to ask Tori too yet before we vote on it.
Yes.
Tori?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chairman?
Mark just got nominated for the South Grow Committee. Are you okay with that, or do you want to nominate somebody else yet?
No, that's fine. Thank you, boss.
Okay, then we're good. So everybody in favor? Okay, that's carried. Now we'll move on to the Highway 3 twinning development, and can I have any nominations for there? Lauren and Morris.
Well, since Eric shows interest in being on that committee for Highway 3 twinning on there, I nominate Eric.
Okay, and we need one more
And then
as an alternate. John?
Hey, Mr. Chair, I would happily stand as an alternate for that committee.
Okay. Any more discussion? So then I will go ahead and ask somebody to move that. Eric? Okay, go ahead.
I would move that Eric Van Essen be appointed as a representative on the Highway 3 Twinning Association Committee, and that Councillor John Gibas be appointed as the alternate to that committee.
Okay, any discussion? If not, let's have the vote. And who's in favor? That's carried. Okay, now we'll move to number 3. Morse?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move Mr. Lauren Hickey to that position. He is very familiar with the Malloy Drain. He's been on it since the day we started it, and I feel he'd be a good person to represent, to be on the Malloy Drain.
Mm-hmm. Tori? Mhm.
I'd like to nominate Tori Campbell to go on the Mallory Drain Steering Committee.
So I'll go forward then. Lauren, do you accept?
Yes, although Morris isn't quite correct, I actually never did sit on that committee, but I was kind of involved, but not really to that extent.
Tori, do you accept?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did he say yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I guess we got a vote. We got two Larry?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, that committee, there is room for an alternate. So if one of the two members can't attend a particular meeting, if the alternate can stand in that place, person's place, you could appoint that third person as a sort of a
Since we
standby.
have an election between the two people now for as a representative, and then we'll do the alternate right after that.
There's two members and an alternate at this rate.
Two members and an alternate,
We just have two nominated at this point, sorry.
Okay,
So we need three.
Yeah, we just need an alternate.
okay, so we'll have,
Need an alternate, that's all.
yes, okay. So can I have a mover for an alternate, an appointment? Or
I'd be happy to be
nominate?
the alternate, and then that's the three of us that sit in, that our areas cover. So I'd be happy to be the alternate.
Okay, so then we have Lauren Hickey and Tori Campbell appointed to the council representative of the Malloy Drain, and Mark Sayer would be the alternate. So, can I have a mover on that one? Okay. Okay, so everybody in favor? That's carried.
Very good.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
filling all those. Then we will move to the capital purchase of the fire truck, the fire services coordinator truck. So, Jeremy, are you going to come forward?
Good morning, council, and welcome, new member of council. So today I'm here to discuss a capital purchase for 2022. Previously, back in September of 2021, council approved the purchase, or the early approval of essentially the 2022 capital equipment, so that we could get ahead of the delays we've had with some of the existing equipment that we have. Two pieces of equipment that we were previously ordered in March of 2021 are hopefully going to arrive here as of January 2022, both trucks. So with that being said, this is for a half-ton truck purchase for the fire services coordinator. At the time when the fire services coordinator was originally hired in August of 2021, it was a contract position, and one of the surplus units that we actually had for operations, we shifted that over to him. Now that this has become a full-time position, our intention was to replace that vehicle. So with that being said, this is a little bit of background information as far as pricing for the purchase of a new fleet unit for essentially that position, now that it is a full-time position, as well as at $50,000, as well as an additional $10,000 for additional outfitting. So that includes the deckling, lights, and other equipment that typically comes with a unit for a fire services coordinator position. Similar to a community peace officer, they have additional electronics and stuff like that that are installed within the unit. So I just want to make sure that this is transparent, that we're actually putting the price of the truck and then as well as the price of the additional equipment going ahead versus just the total. The total cost should probably fall in right in around $60,000, but this breaks it out so we're not saying this is a $60,000 truck. The truck will be approximately $50,000. The additional equipment's another $10,000. So with the existing unit that the fire services coordinator is using, it is an older unit. It is 200,000 plus kilometers on it. This is typically the area and range of which we would have surplus this unit out. There was plans to surplus this unit out even previously until this position was actually created. So now we're looking to basically come in line with what our fleet requirements are with the unit that is very active. And the fire services coordinator has been attending all kinds of different scenes all over the county, and we have had a few mechanical troubles with this unit here even in the last couple of months. So this is getting ahead of the game essentially, so that we can continue to have that fire services coordinator providing the services that he does to the county residents. I touched on the financial impact. The alternative essentially would be to not approve this at this time and surplus this in, or put this piece of equipment onto the 2023 capital equipment, and that can be done accordingly. In any essence, this is a new position, and we will have a continuing cycling of this vehicle for that position going into the future. So this would appear on the 2022 capital, and then we would probably look 5 years down the road, depending on mileage that is put on this unit, and then we would look at replacing it at whatever point down the road as per our capital plan. And the reasons for my recommendation consist around this being an aging unit, and as we have a great amount of work that this fire service coordinator has been doing across the countryside, it is important for him to have a reliable unit essentially out there when he is moving around. This is a little bit opportunistic as well. It is difficult to acquire fleet units essentially at this time. This approval does not mean there's going to be a truck purchase tomorrow by any means, but there is a potential in anywhere from potentially the next week or potentially 12 months down the road that we'll actually be able to acquire this unit. The sooner the better, but as this was not something that was included in the 2022 initial capital approval, that's why I'm bringing this forward as a recommendation for today.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Are there any questions for Jeremy? John?
Thank you. I have a few questions, so I'll go through the one and then I'll yield to other people that might have some interest. Is this purchase something that is going to fit in with the enterprise program, or is this through the enterprise program, or is this just a plain and simple outright purchase?
This would be an outright purchase, just because of the decaling and all the outfitting that goes into the unit. The enterprise units are intended to be cycled every year, versus since this one will be equipped, it'll be similar to any of our other work trucks or the community peace officer vehicle, where we're going to retain this vehicle for an extended period of time.
Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So seeing as this is an unallocated purchase, is there something you could give up to keep the budget in kind of line? Or what do you expect? Like, is it going to be next year before you get it anyway, or?
If I could predict when we could get some fleet units, I would probably be a mastermind right now. As far as the overall budget, with some of the equipment that we have purchased and some of the forecasts that we did have for some of it, for instance, the tractor we had for construction, we estimated the budget at $500,000. That's come in now at $396,000. So there's a $100,000 difference on that. The two graders that we had forecasted were each forecasted for $600, or $600 or $625 per. I'm just going to try and pull up the capital sheet.
While he's doing that, can I just
Yeah,
answer?
okay, Ann?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Hickey, one of the things too we had to make sure of, because this FTE position was in the budget, until the budget was approved, we didn't want to presume that it was going to be approved. So that's why the truck purchase is coming after. We didn't want to put them both in the budget, because we want to let council know about the FTE position. Once the budget was approved on the 16th of December, then of course, and that's why we're bringing the truck forward now. What's that? When you said unallocated, that's why it's coming after the budget.
So,
We could have put it both in. I think we could have put it in at the same time, but our rationale or reasoning was we wanted to present the budget. Is council okay with this FTE position? Yes, it was approved. Then the next step was to fit out a truck.
But it's still
Okay.
unapproved, is my point. We didn't approve the purchase of the vehicle.
No.
In the budget.
No, we
Yeah.
didn't.
No.
No, we
That's
didn't.
my point.
No, but
So-
that's what I'm explaining to you why.
I understand, but it's not approved, so that's why hence I'm asking you, what could you sort of give up that you maybe can't get? Or do you want to put this vehicle in the next year's purchase cycle?
Those are covered in the recommendations.
okay, Jeremy, you would?
No, there's no giving up anything in this recommendation here.
I believe the funding is coming through the Equipment Reserve Fund. Is that correct, Jeremy?
Yep. The funding is through the Equipment Reserve Fund. I think what Councillor Hickey is alluding to is that is there a trade-off? Is there a piece of equipment that does not need to be purchased as a trade-off for the capital amount?
That's exactly right.
And just as I was going through some of the other details for some of the stuff that we do have, and this isn't the this wasn't the one that council did approve. This is an older version of the capital, but we have seen some good cost differences essentially in the capital amounts for this year. Graders came in under, tractors came in under, and then everything else was relatively essentially the same. So there is, if you're looking at the net expenditure amount, even with this 50,000 from the capital reserve, we would still be well within that 3 million plus that was essentially approved by council. If you're looking at it as a net amount, if you're looking at it as a per unit amount, the only thing is that we do not have purchased at, or we haven't issued POs for essentially at this time, we had three 3/4 ton or 1 ton units allocated for operations, and none of those units have been purchased essentially at this point.
Morris?
You know, I know Lauren got a good point on that, and I think we ran into that before. And when we had an issue like that down there, where we needed the purchase or whatever, we also had in there right away, you know, that we need to make an approval to the addition in the budget, if it is minus or pluses down there, whatever. But we're not doing that, and shouldn't that be done first? That we need the approval of our budget change? Because I know what Lauren is getting from you. But that's what we used to do, isn't it, Lauren?
Are you going to try to answer that one, Jeremy, or?
I can't speak to any of that previous history, whether or not there was trade-offs and stuff like that were done.
Okay, then Ann? would
Yeah,
you
I
like
guess
to
in
weigh
hindsight, we could have put them both in the budget and just kind of highlighted that the truck went with the FTE. So probably that would have alleviated some of these challenges we're having now.
That probably would have answered the question here, that it would have, that we would have had it in the budget.
Yeah.
Only we were not certain yet if we were going to hire it the full time, and that is the reason why.
Yeah, and so in hindsight, staff should have, we were trying not to put the horse before the cart, right?
Mm-hmm.
But possibly we could have put them both in the budget and highlighted that
Mhm.
in hindsight.
Okay, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You alluded in your recommendations that there's been some maintenance on this vehicle, and it's sitting right around 200,000 kilometers. Realizing that when you're trying to purchase a truck right now, the delays are horrendous. I guess my question is, do we have an idea of what the maintenance costs on it over the last 12 months was? And second to that is, do we have an idea of what the anticipated maintenance costs would be if we just kept that vehicle for the next year and then put it into next year's budget?
Thank you, Councillor Kurbis. Just recently in the last 3 months, we've put about $3,000 to $5,000 into this unit, and as it is, I can't really predict what the future cost would be for this year, but as it is at that point where you're looking at potential engine, potential transmission on this unit, I mean it very well could go another 50,000 kilometers without a hit, or it could go 5,000 kilometers and we're doing some work on it. So I mean, the anticipated cost is there. I mean, with the older the unit gets, the more money we expect to put into it.
Okay, John?
Thank you, and I appreciate that, but if we put $5,000 into it, that sounds like that was a fairly major repair. My mindset is if you do something like that, it tends to be a major long-term fix issue. When you're dealing with newer vehicles, 200,000 kilometers it's getting up there, but it's not end of life cycle on those vehicles like they were even 10, 15 years ago. They tend to be a lot more reliable. There are vehicles that are running around with considerably more mileage on it. I look at this from the standpoint of if you tried to purchase one right now, the odds of it actually arriving and being in our fleet before the next budget cycle is probably slim to none, unless we were prepared to accept something that wasn't necessarily exactly what we needed. So, it would be my opinion on this, that this is something that could wait till next year.
I think we should probably not speculate on things, what can happen, and nobody knows what is going to happen. So I think that is it's a really hard, like, to put some figures on there, and why is it going to last? Is it not going to last? I mean, we don't know that. So I think that, and what I don't want to see is I don't want to see our fire person there, that he's standing on the side of the road and then he can't do anything. I think that is he should have a decent vehicle that's going to last him. And it's I think that we should consider that too. Mark?
Just to clarify again, Jeremy, you're talking about some of the other pieces of equipment that we've been quoted on, but we're substantially below, so the savings would go into the reserve. So to respond to Lauren's concerns, at the end of the day, when we look at the budget, we're going to be under budget, because the amount that's coming back in to the reserves would far exceeds what we're asking for the fire service vehicle.
That is correct. And then just as a follow-up to that, for any capital equipment purchase, it initially comes out of the reserve, and then it essentially is charged back to departments as a usage charge, essentially year to year.
Tori, do you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is one of those ones where there's obviously a number of different viewpoints. I think we can go round and round and really get caught in the weeds if we when we start debating useful life and how long something might last and all those things. I think at the end of the day, our Public Works Department and Fleet have established life cycle, trade cycle, sales cycles for trucks, tractors. Everything has a lifespan within the county's fleet. And if I'm understanding this correctly, this particular truck that we're talking about, the one that is in the fleet right now, was on a schedule. It was scheduled to be removed. So I would be comfortable with staying in line with the previous direction and disposing of the said item and replacing it to keep it in line with our other practices of trying to keep in line with those replacement schedules. Thank you.
Okay, Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a new position, and I think it's a good position the county decided to go with or whatever. However, give us a bit of an idea what kind of miles he is going to be putting on during a regular week or month. Like, how much traveling is there? Like, name the towns you got to visit and everything else down there, and maybe also attend certain emergency issues in the county. How much would it be, you think? Miles-wise, kilometer-wise.
I would be speculating again, but for our community peace officer puts on 50,000 kilometers plus per year, essentially is what we've seen on his units. I would not expect the fire services coordinator to be that high, but he would still probably be in the range I would expect of 30 to 40,000 kilometers per year, just based on the geographic coverage that he has across the area. Because we have fire services in Barrons, Nobleford, Picture Butte, Coaldale, Colehurst, and the city of Lethbridge, all of which he responds to that vast map that you can see over there on the wall.
Okay, I think that everybody has weighed in, and I think that we are just about ready to move forward to accept a motion. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to make it clear, I'm not opposed to getting a vehicle. What I'm opposed to is the fact it wasn't in the budget. And the fact that it keeps being brought up, well, we're saving money and we're going to be able to allocate that money to something else. But if it wasn't in the budget, and when I think about a business, if it's not in the budget, it doesn't get done usually. In this case, we're kind of just going under the assumption because we saved X number of dollars in A, we can spend it on B. And that's the part that I think most people in the county get kind of upset with. We're not following what we do in the budget. I think that's important.
Okay, Mark?
Just in response to that, Lauren, so if the truck had been budgeted into the, or we'd put that in the budget, the position was debated, and then we decided not to fulfill it, then based on that argument, this year we'd be buying a brand new pickup truck for somebody for a position we don't have, right?
No, we wouldn't be because we don't have the position.
But it's in your budget.
But you don't have to spend your budget just because if you don't have a position, you don't have to spend the budget.
Ann?
I just think, I understand what Councillor Hickey's saying and Councillor Sayers is saying, and I think I will own that because it was my call when staff asked me about it. I said, I don't think we should put it in the budget because we don't know if the position is going to be materialized or not. So, as I mentioned earlier, in hindsight, perhaps we should have been both in the budget and highlighted them both. And we will do that next time to save this kind of confusion.
Okay, so it's very clear that things are the way they are now, and we have a recommendation on the table here, an ask for a new pickup truck. So I would like to entertain a motion here. Mark?
I would move that council approve a budget of $50,000 for the purchase of a fleet half-ton truck unit for fire services coordinator and $10,000 for additional outfitting. The funding will come through the equipment reserve.
Okay, any more discussion? I think we've had quite a bit on it. So, everybody in favor? Tory?
Favor, thank you.
Was that a yes or a no?
He's in favor.
In favor. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4. That's carried.
That's good.
Yeah, it is the way it is, guys. All right, now we're going to move back to move to corporate services, and we're going to go to the policy review 145 of the Municipal Reserve Fund. And Larry is going to come forward to do that.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The writer of this report, our finance services manager, is not here today, obviously, so just stepping in. This is a very simple report here before you. As you are aware, Council, administration has been reviewing all the council policies over the last year or more now, I think, and have made a number of recommendations to council that have come over the past number of meetings where policies are rescinded or new ones created or amended as needed. And this one falls into the needing amendment kind of category in that respect. And what we are presenting to you today, Mr. Chairman, is that the current policy, which is the Land Trust Reserve Policy, as it's called, it's not referred to that anymore. It's simply really a name change. So this policy does meet all of the Municipal Government Act regulations. It just requires a name change from Land Trust Reserve Fund to Municipal Reserve Fund. And that is all we're proposing today. It doesn't have any direct financial impact or any other impact on the county, merely a kind of a housekeeping name change. The 3-page policy is attached to the report, and you'll notice that it's clearly outlined there in 10 separate spots where we're proposing that the words land trust be struck and replaced with the word municipal, so that it will now become the Municipal Reserve Fund. That's what Section 671 of the Municipal Government Act refers to it as, and we just think it's much cleaner and, you know, just again, bringing it in line with what the current legislation says. So that is our only recommendation here for you. And just if I may make a reference earlier, as we know, there were 2 presentations about subdivisions, and Municipal Reserve was talked about. And I think in one of those subdivisions, it was recommended that the Municipal Reserve be paid now as opposed to being deferred further. That's really what this is. Those municipal funds that are paid into subdivision development go into this Municipal Reserve account, which can only be used for publicly owned parks, in other words, county-owned parks, publicly owned and operated recreation areas, school board purposes, or to separate areas of land that are used for different purposes. It can't go into, you know, any kind of capital or other operating projects. It must be used specifically for those purposes as well. You know, can't go into sort of general operating revenue and so on. So, in a nutshell, the recommendation simply is that Council approve the revisions made to policy number 145, Municipal Reserve Fund, as presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Larry.
Welcome.
Do you have any discussion on this? If not, is somebody prepared to move this recommendation? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the council approve the revisions made for policy number 145, Municipal Reserve Fund, as presented.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, everybody in favor? That's carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
So now we're moving on to G42, that is the Provincial Education Requisition Credit Application. And Les is coming forward. Good morning, Les.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Council. I'm presenting the report for the Provincial Education Requisition Credit Program. As you may be aware, we have a few oil companies that haven't been able to pay their bills over the last several years, and this is going to allow us to at least attempt to try to get back some of the money. The Provincial Education Requisition Credit provides municipalities with an education property tax credit equal to the uncollectible education property taxes on delinquent oil and gas properties. PERC was scheduled to conclude after the 2021 tax year intake. However, the program has been extended for 2 more years as tax recovery challenges continue. Municipalities may apply for PERC retroactively to the 2015 tax year through to the 2023 tax year. I'm here today to request the recommendation that county write off the municipal portion of the outstanding taxes for the following oil and gas companies: Canadian Oil and Gas International, $5,135.67. Verity Energy Limited, $77,733.32. Tuscany Energy, $39,518.50. And Sandling Energy, $5,027.17. We'd also like to ask that Council move that administration make an application to the Provincial Education Requisition Credit in the amount of $12,023.68. Now, previously, Council has supported administration in their attempts to collect outstanding oil and gas taxes. Anything we can get, and this is where we're at right now. And just, I guess, some background on this. Canadian Oil, Verity, and Tuscany, these 3 oil companies, they've been they were bankrupt and they've been discharged, so there's absolutely no possible way we're going to recapture any money from them. Sandling, they're presently in receivership, and this one account is something that they've has been taken off their, I guess, their total assets. It's already been removed and transferred to another company, and we're collecting taxes on the property, but we can't get the outstanding. Now, the PERC program has guidelines. I'm not going to, where administration's going to follow those and look into that, so I'm not going to read through all that. But in order to fill out the application, we need these motions from council, and we have to do a journal entry and write these taxes off. So as per the PERC application guidelines, the county will have to write off the remaining tax balances as bad debt for each of the companies listed on the application and the amount of $122,286.57. These balances have already been identified as uncollectible tax receivables as part of the year-end processes. So the alternatives and pros, this will allow the county to recoup the education portion of the outstanding oil and gas properties. The con, not making an application would mean the education portion on the outstanding oil and gas related taxes would have to be written off along with the other balances. So this basically, it's all that we're getting. The total outstanding taxes in this application is $139,438.33. And although we have to write off $127,414.65, there's an opportunity to recoup $12,023.68. And just, we need to do this just so we can recoup that. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Les? So the application of, I mean, not the application, to make an application for the $12,000, is that pretty much for sure that we can get that back? To recoup some of that money?
I'm hoping so. As long as, so far we've filled out everything that we've asked to do. It says some of these companies, like we've gone back to 2015, but as far as our understanding, we're going to be able to recoup it. There's going to be another application after this one as well. So this is just, these are the oldest of the oil companies that are defunct. And
So how many more do you have, Les, that are going to be coming up in future meetings?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more.
And a fair amount of money involved there too?
Yep.
Are there any more questions for Les? Okay, go ahead.
Are there any alternate legal avenues to pursue any of this money, or have they been exhausted and this is our last resource?
For these companies, it has been, this is the last resort because they're obsolete. There's absolutely nothing, no one's there to speak to them or do anything. On the ones that are upcoming, there's quite a few of them they'll be exhausted too, but there's still one that's basically actively operating, so we might be able to pursue another option to recover some tax dollars through them.
Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're gonna, if we go ahead with this, we're gonna write it out, but the site is still there, right? Where it's being taxed on. Is it decommissioned or what is it?
Oh, yeah, well, the majority of that amount was actually the actual well and the pipeline. So it was assessed by municipal affairs, not through the county, so it's not the surface equipment or anything like that. These bankrupt ones, they fall under the jurisdiction now of the Orphan Well Association. So some of those have been cleaned up, some are still there.
Yeah, but the way I kind of look at it, I don't think that's gonna be 100% decommissioned. So I think there is a chance that another company might walk in there and have the opportunity to use those sites. And why shouldn't we just leave it on down there and give it up now or give it up later? What's the difference?
Yeah,
The
these.
only thing is your school portion, I guess,
Yeah, but
education portion.
yeah, no, yeah. Like these older sites, they're what's left of them. The one that has been, like, there is one of Sandling's sites that another company has taken over, and we're going to be collecting taxes from here on in. But we can't collect San Ling's taxes from the new oil company. The other 3 companies, those sites, they were old gas and oil fields. They're highly unlikely that anyone's gonna take them over. They're gonna be
So who's responsible for the cleanup?
orphan well.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of discussion going around about that at the RMA and everything too, that everybody's stuck with the orphan wells, and I think that they're working on trying to get some funding from the provincial government in order to be able to clean that up. That you know, and a lot of people, they want them out of their field if they're gone, and I think there's a lot of money going to be involved in that, but apparently the province hasn't funded a whole lot of money to do anything like that yet. So. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if administration could sort of give us some information, because there was a lot of talk at a RMA convention about the provincial government putting legislation and making it easier for municipalities to cover or to recover these back taxes that aren't paid, and how these particular properties fit into that. Has that legislation been passed, or is this something that if we wait, we have that potential to go in? I just want to know how that all ties in together.
Ed?
Yes, we can, but that would probably be something we'd have to just collect and bring back to the next council meeting or a council meeting after that. With regards to the legislation, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe it has been passed yet. But we can certainly bring a report back to council that it kind of explains more of the background and the cost to the county too.
John?
So just following up on that, then, would it be prudent for us to move this forward until we get a little bit more information on that to see whether there is a higher potential of recovery than 8 cents on the dollar?
I wouldn't think so, because this is to recoup the education cost. It's not going to change anything, I don't believe, but it's a council decision.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if we write this off, does that preclude us from going and chasing after it at a later date because there's a change in legislation?
Yes, but the legislation would probably be from that point forward. So it's up to you guys.
Because don't forget, we're working on this since 2015 already, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, these have all declared bankruptcy, and if you declare bankruptcy, you're done. You can't never get no money out of that anymore. And I think the main thing right now is for us to try to get that $12,000 back.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. But as I understand the change in the legislation, and I might be paraphrasing, correct me if I'm wrong, but the change in legislation is designed to allow municipalities to then seize assets, or there's a potential for recovery of seizure of assets. So basically what I want to know in my mind is, are we making a good decision by doing this now, or is this something that potentially, that if we waited a little bit longer, because for us to recover 8 cents on the dollar when there's a potential that we may be able to recover more of it if we hang out, because yes, it's been since 2015. I just want to understand and wrap my head around, is this a prudent thing to do now, just get it off, rip the Band-Aid off, or is there some benefit to waiting?
I don't believe that, and unfortunately the manager of finance isn't here to speak to this, but I believe they've exhausted every opportunities unless new legislation comes in. So it's up to council if you want to wait, but the likelihood of legislation when it comes in, I don't believe that they will backdate it. I believe it will be moving forward, but I can't determine that. I don't know enough about what the legislation's going to say, so I don't really want to speak to that until I have more data in my fingertips.
Okay, thanks. And I think that, we don't even know what kind of a legislature's coming in there, and I think we're dealing with what we got in front of us here today. And I think the government, with putting some money in it, was more cleaning up what was there than anything else. And I think that was one of the main things. Ann?
One thing I just wanted to ask Les, is there an application date where the PERC application has to be in by?
Yes, it has to be in by February 1st.
Okay.
Dory, do you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be in support of forwarding our application for the PERC program. I understand there's some conversations about what potentially could be done coming down the pipe, but I think given the limited amount of tools that are in front of us, I think this is an opportunity to at least recoup some of that. So I would be in support of forwarding the application that's being presented in front of us today. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, can we have a motion? Mark?
So, my understanding is there's two motions. So the first one would be that I move that the county write off the municipal portion of the outstanding taxes for the following oil and gas companies as listed below. Canadian Oil and Gas International Incorporated for the amount of $5,135.67. Verity Energy Limited for $77,733.32. Tuscany Energy Limited for $39,518.50. And Sandling Energy, the amount of $5,027.17.
All right, any more discussion on this? If not, can we have a, who's in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Then we'll go move to the second part of this recommendation. And who wants to move that the administration make an application? John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the administration make an application for Provincial Education Requisition Credit, also known as PERC, in the amount of $12,023.68.
More discussion on this? Anybody in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you very much. And now we're going to move to G5-1. That is the change to the LAPP vesting period and update to the county policy of number 159. And Dana, I think you're going to be coming forward. Good morning.
Feels like the afternoon, but good morning, County Council. We're getting close here. I am here today to present a report on a change to the LAPP vesting period. You have the report in front of you, but just as the executive summary, effective January 1st of this year, there was a change made, so anybody who has less than 2 years of service under the plan will be immediately vested, which means that any plan member will be entitled to a pension upon starting and being a member of that LAPP. It may be very small depending on your tenure with the organization. Alberta moved to immediate vesting in September of 2014 for private sector defined benefit pension plans, and now public sector pension plans like LAPP will have the same benefit. This immediate vesting period is a legislated minimum standard set out in the Employment Pension Act, Pension Plan Acts of Alberta, under which LAPP is registered. The change aligns LAPP's vesting provisions with the standard across Canada and many plans in the country, which moves to reduce that vesting period. Previously, if an employee resigned within the first 2 years, they would be able to move their portion of their contributions with them when they go, but the county's contributions would remain in the LAPP plan, and they would never come back to the employer. They would just get in that pool of funds. With this change to LAPP, which is a mandatory change, which requires us to update our policy to make sure that it stays in alignment with that, every employee will get a pension if you start as a member of LAPP. It may be very small, as I said. So unfortunately, this is a mandated decision. I don't think we really have a choice, but what I do need council approval for is support to update the changes that I brought forward to LAPP policy 159, which used to define the vesting period, which has changed, and I've just put vesting will be immediate for all eligible employees that join the LAPP plan. So my recommendation is that you accept the recommended changes to policy 159 LAPP around vesting. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I got one question here on that, mandatory, you got one here. Right in the beginning there, these, it says the employee shall participate in the local authority's pension plan upon appointment to it was full-time and now became another full-time.
It is, I just,
Okay,
there's
okay.
just
Okay.
a hyphen in that word when I looked. That's
Okay,
how
yeah.
Word wanted me to spell it. It's a very minor change there. Just a hyphen is the only change on
Okay,
that sentence there.
but I caught you.
Yeah, good, perfect. Well, I'm happy to answer that question. That's an easy one for sure.
So anybody else, any questions? Not, can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to motion that the council, or move that we accept the recommended changes to council, or county policy 159, local authorities pension plan, LAPP, around vesting.
Any more discussion? Not, can I have a show of hands in favor? That's carried.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Darren.
So, we want to keep on going, or what is the score?
I think lunch is going to be here at 12. Is it here? It's not here
Okay.
yet?
Okay.
It's going to be delivered downstairs, so.
Okay.
At lunch, whenever it
Yeah,
gets here.
then we'll move on to the Labor Relations Committee, and I think Ann was going to tackle this one.
Okay. Good morning, it's me. Been putting up with me all morning. We've been reviewing the various policies and committees and whatnot over the past year. So one thing that we did discuss at the organizational meeting was the Labor Relations Committee, and I did promise council that I would bring a report back about that committee. Now, this committee was set up, I believe, in 1995, and that was pre the changes to the Municipal Government Act. My recommendation is that we disband the committee, and the reason for that is because council as a whole has to ratify the union and the non-union management agreement. So it is felt that council give administration, delegate to administration, and the team goes and negotiates, and you say what your expectations are to ratify the union agreement and also the non-union management agreement as well. So I won't go over all the things because I'm sure everybody's read their reports. And if you have any questions.
You going to leave it at that?
Yes, I'm going to leave
Okay.
it at that.
Then are there any questions? Lauren?
Just a question under cons. You say that by leaving the Labor Relations Committee in place, we've been not allowing administration to perform their duties. Furthermore, by leaving the committee in place, we are reverting to antiquated practices. I guess I'm not sure how you're, or what exactly you totally mean there, because the committee didn't really have a say in what took place anyways, so I'm not sure what that means.
I think what I was referring to there, Councillor Hickey, is that because this was written before the changes in the Municipal Government Act, all of council as a whole should have the same information, and that was something that was laid out in the new government or the changes to the Municipal Government Act, which I think came in 2018 or 2017, I'm not sure. But that's what I was referring to there. With 3 members of the committee involved in the negotiations, it was really something that should be the whole of council making those decisions, giving the direction to administration, and then letting us go and do the negotiations. When the negotiations were done, bringing the collective agreement forward, letting council know what their requests were, and then council either ratifying it or not.
Okay, Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, the reasons that we have a committee down there instead of the whole council is when we did have the negotiation going on with just 3 councillors, it was a lot more constructive that way instead of the whole council, because now you're gonna have basically the whole council there, and you're gonna have maybe 7 different opinions down there, and it could end into that being. But so the way it was done before, there was 3 councils down there. When they came to a certain decision, either side, it was brought forward to council anyways. and then council as a whole made that decision to go ahead with that or not. So I'm a little puzzled over it. I think the negotiation with the smaller committee was handled better, I think. Would be handled better.
Just to speak to that, so that there is an extra step in there. If you're saying 3 members have to go back to council, there's an extra step in there, right? So if council as a whole delegates to, staff through me and says, this is what our expectations are, and then I come back and say, here's what it is as a whole, then that was what the intention of this report is.
What?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just out of curiosity on your definition of the cons, how far does that go? Like, so if a member of this council goes to a committee meeting, how do you carry forth what you said to that level? Like, if 3 people are down there in negotiations, or 3 people are on a committee, council isn't aware or the same position either way, whether it's a committee, say, with Coaldale, or whether it's a committee with labor relations. So I'm kind of curious how you split the two apart.
Well, I think you're looking at external and internal committees, and it's a little different, but my thought process would be that if you're at a committee for, say, like an IDP, you're there as a representative, but you can't make decisions unless you're as a whole, right? So you're bringing the information back to council.
Mark?
I think we're a little off track here. And we've had this discussion before, or earlier when we first started in council, but this committee is into operations, which isn't our role. Our role as a council is to be a governance role. We have 1 employee, period. So historically, that committee may have served a purpose, but in my mind, currently, it absolutely doesn't. We are so far over the line into operations that you're handcuffing your administration. And if we follow the Government Act, our only employee is the CAO, so that's who we give direction to. So I have absolutely no issue with taking this committee and dissolving it. So I don't think in today's governance model and the way we operate, I don't think it's effective, or we should even have it. So.
Well, I think if I go weigh in, I think that I kind of echo what Mark was saying there, and I think we're kind of interfering in the job of administration to be able to do the work that they want, because in the end we make the final decision anyway. Administration comes back with the negotiations that they have made with the union and the labor people, and they come back to council, and then we can decide whether or not we will accept that. But the difference is, if you got a couple of people sitting there, you can't really negotiate anyway, because that's up to administration to negotiate. So maybe in the past it was different, but I think now with the new MGA that things have changed, and I think through that, I think that the committee that we had is kind of not being able to do the work what they used to be doing. Lord?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I have sat on this committee for a long time, and I would have to say that as a member of the committee, we never negotiated anyways. It was always presented by administration. They simply were there to answer any questions that perhaps the committee from the union side wanted to know. Well, why was this in the budget if you didn't mean it? Or what was the budget representing? But we did not negotiate. That was strictly between staff to staff, staff to union.
Tory, do you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would echo what Councillor Sayers presented. I think he was spot on. I have nothing further to add on top of that. I think he was very accurate in his description of council's role and the role that council plays in this particular matter. And I think he nailed it. So thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. in an effort towards transparency and direct connection, having a chair present could provide council with a very clear image of how the negotiations go.
Okay, but just for clarification, we had 3 members sitting on the Labor Relations Committee, so, yeah. Okay, anybody else want to have anything input here yet?
The
Ann,
only
you
thing
wanna have
I
final
just
words?
want to add is that as the one employee of council, you know, I sit down with council beforehand and you give me clear direction. So then that is what I take forward. So it's not like we're making this up. We're taking clear direction from council and we're reporting back to council.
Okay, with that said, Mark?
I would like to move that the Labor Relations Committee that was established, or I would like to, I'd like to move that the county council disband the Labor Relations Committee.
Okay, any more discussion on this? If not, we'll go to a vote. Who's in favor? 4, that's carried. Yes.
Lunch is here if we want to break, because we have 2 other items that may be a little bit of time if we want to break for lunch.
Yeah, I think we'll be done before 2:30 anyway. You know, I
Okay.
think we'll make that. So, what if we did 2:30? We'll probably have another, probably a good hour.
Maybe a half an hour for lunch?
Yeah, let's do a half an hour for lunch. Let's be back here at 12:40. Jeremy?
Just as a quick note, since you are on this item right now, as that motion has been passed, there should be a secondary motion then to rescind the policy 130.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I checked
Okay.
with them.
Oh, we don't need it?
No, I'm sorry, pardon me, yes. it
Yes,
was
we do.
recommended that
Okay,
policy technically
then
still
John, you're going to make the motion?
Yeah.
And what is the motion?
Rescind
Did-
policy 130?
Yeah. Did you get it? Okay. Everybody in favor? That's carried. start up the afternoon meeting, and let's move on to our correspondence that we have, and that is 9-4 concerns we have. And I don't know if you all went through the letter that was sent to council. If do we want to have some discussion on that, or do we want to take that for information? Mark?
So I went for my county drive the other day. I had the afternoon off, so I thought I should go cruising. So I took the old truck out for a drive and went down that road. And I think Jeremy talked about this earlier. The only time we usually get calls is when it's snowing or raining. So I know the last time we had that, that it was really wet. And I believe that road was just done this year. So that's when my phone was lighting up. I was getting calls, Ann was getting calls, and there was trucks getting stuck, and it was a hot mess. But that's part of my understanding is that's part of that process till that road packs that we'll get that. But anyway, I drove down it, and it's in better shape than our roads in terms of being flat and not, our haul road. But I thought I was driving on thinking, what's the problem? But I know as soon as it rains and snow, that's the issue. So,
Jeremy, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, so that was one of our rehab projects for this year. Township Road 9-4 essentially from Broxburn 20, I can't remember specifically the road number, but we did 4 miles all the way over to Highway 845. The roadway previously was anywhere from 11 and 12 meters wide for a bunch of sections, and we hence brought that roadway in. It is typical with most roads that get rebuilt is that we do have to go through and do graveling after the fact. That one was done in about May, June last year. We gravel it, we allow material to get pushed in, and then usually our plan with those is to come back 6 months later and essentially reapply gravel as needed, depending on the traffic load essentially on it. And since that one has right in around, we've done traffic counts on it, and it has anywhere from 75 to 125 vehicles per day just on that stretch. It is right adjacent to or on the far end by 845, there is about a 15 to 20,000 head feedlot right there that's owned by Casco's. So it does get a fair amount of traffic in and around that area, as well as we get traffic coming from the city of Lethbridge, uses that as their bypass essentially over onto Highway 845 and then are heading north. Or if they're coming into the north end of Lethbridge, they use that roadway quite frequently, as well as to the north, Township Road 10-2, which is one of the designated haul routes and has a base stabilization pack on it. But as for the roadway itself, I mean, it is one of our highest traffic gravel roadways. We do have it ranked as a priority 1. That was where it was designated for the rehab work that we did do on it this year. I would only expect that it will stiffen up a little bit more as we add subsequent layers of gravel and that crust really builds up on that one. But it is very much any high traffic gravel roadway with snow or rain, that's when they get the most attention. Most of the time, that is a very nice hard packed gravel roadway though. I mean, it is 325 days of the year. It's probably one of the nicer roads in the area, and it gets graded quite frequently. It gets graveled frequently, but for those days of rain and snow, and especially when we get that initial portion, any roadway in the county, we get the exact same concerns.
Have you spoken to the author of the letter?
Yes, I spoke to her back a couple months ago, when it was after the first snowfall we had, and she was concerned about how much traffic was coming down there, and just as in the letter, made the same request that because of the traffic volumes that it should get hard surfaced. I tried to explain at that time to her that there's a certain threshold at which we'll definitely take a look at that, but this roadway, as much as it's in your backyard, it doesn't propagate enough traffic that I would make a recommendation to council that it needs to be paved.
But with that said, her letter was from December 13th, so did it seem like the problem was solved already before she wrote the letter?
The road dried up, firmed up, and we graveled it beginning November, end of October. I have to take a look back at our records. I mean, I know we did gravel it right after we did have a substantial rainfall, and I believe it was after the election, essentially at that time.
Right.
Ed?
A suggestion is to make a response, because she did put a formal request into council, so I would suggest that we send a letter back to her from the Reeve, just outlining what steps were taken, just so that the dialogue stays open and that she does receive a response back, so
Okay.
that would be my suggestion.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is this the road they used to call the Power Line Road, or is that a different road?
That's Township Road 10-2, so that's 4 miles to the north.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That one is base stabilized. Township Road 9-4 is not base stabilized.
Well, when we used to have lots of trouble with that road.
Yes.
That was mainly because of the irrigation ditch leaked so bad there.
I couldn't speak to that.
It was before your time. so
Yeah, I can speak to that detail, but it definitely was, from what I'm told, a very hard road to maintain.
Okay. So with that said, we're gonna send a response that we looked at it, and then we'll put the right wording in there.
Yep.
Are we able to chat with some of these businesses and suggest that they drop down to 9-2, which is a haul road, is that right?
Part of, no, 9-2 isn't a
No,
haul
no,
road
okay,
either.
then it's not.
Neither 9-4 or 9-2 are, actually, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I saw John looking at the map.
Yeah.
The one thing that, one of the concerns we get is that, Pratt and Whitney uses that as their hauling route, for hauling silos and stuff like that out of their area. The problem with Township Road 9-2 is, I mean, the reason why 9-4 is a preferred route is actually through, Fortis, because they don't have to raise any power lines or anything throughout that stretch of roadway. And it's a direct one-shot route, so for their turning movements and so on, it's the most direct access point to Highway 845. Plus, I mean, the other part is, it is well-maintained, and we do put a lot of maintenance time into that, so, I mean, people are like cattle. They track towards the best road and the best path.
Okay. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you got Triple M Homes too is also a big user of that road, I believe.
Correct.
And a Meridian.
Yep.
The hopper bottom bin people. They use that road quite a bit too.
Yep. Lots of industrial traffic on that northeast part of the city limits essentially uses that roadway, as well as we're seeing more and more with Cavendish being right just south of Township Road 9-4 and 43rd Street. We're seeing lots more agricultural traffic when they're doing potato hauls into for processing. We'll see lots of traffic coming down for that purpose. But that's intermittent too. When they make a call, there's a lot of trucks all of a sudden.
Okay. Tori, do you want to weigh in?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. No, I think it's been well covered. I think Ms. Thordarson's concerns are valid. I think in her letter she acknowledges the fact that, like many roads in the county, they're obviously weren't designed to see the level of traffic that we're seeing. Having these roads built in the 50s and 60s and onward. The type of traffic that we're encountering, and as well as what was just noted, being a municipality that has a very large urban center as well as some other urban centers in close proximity within our boundaries, it presents a number of unique challenges with the manufacturing and that kind of stuff. I know in the past we've discussed how do we better balance that, and I think that is a discussion that we need to have when we sit down with our neighbors in the city, is just making sure that they're aware that it is a challenge that we face, supporting those businesses that lie within their boundaries, but at the same time, also a lot of those businesses do serve our rural residents too, so just keeping that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, can I have somebody to move that we respond to this letter and, explain things accordingly?
I would move that the Reeve supplier or provide a letter to Mrs. Thordarson in response to hers.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, everybody in favor? That's carried. So now we'll go to the next, I think a next enjoyable letter there, seeing that it's our CEO that gets complimented on the work that she's done. And I think that we should be proud of our CEO and the work that she's done in the last 18 or 20 minutes and the last 3 years, basically. But I mean, especially in the difficult time that you had. And I think that we are very thankful for that all.
Thank you, and
would
I'd like to extend that to the staff because I'm telling you, we have a really exceptional team here. And we got through this pandemic really well because we have such a strong organization. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, a big thank you to all, like the CEO and staff. And so do we want to take this as information then? I think we probably should. If somebody would like to move that. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the letter from the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators be accepted as information.
Okay, everybody in favor? That's carried. Thank you again, and then we're going to move on to J1, County Council attendance. And
Just for the new members here too, we do, in order to remain transparent and accountable to our citizens, once a month, all members of council give an update on their activities. And we usually start with Division 1 and then go all the way through to Division 7. And the report is attached there for you.
so with that, Lauren, do you want to start?
You do both November and December at the same time?
Sure.
November, sorry. November the 16th, County Council orientation session. The 18th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. That's a typo, they were both the same day, weren't they? No? No, we had one on Tuesday. Okay. The 23rd to the 26th November, the RMA Fall Convention. 29th, the council orientation session number 3. November the 30th, budget deliberations. And December the 1st was budget review. December the 6th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. The 7th, budget review. The 8th was the FCSS meeting in Tabor. The 14th and the 15th were Green Acres Foundation meetings or social events for residents in their homes. The 16th, Lethbridge County Council meeting, and the 17th, the staff appreciation barbecue.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Are there any questions for Lauren? If not, we'll move on to Tori. Tori, you want to do both November and December?
Thank you, Paz. November 3rd, media availability with local news. The 4th, County Council meeting. 5th, CAO Read meeting. Anna and I have been meeting on Fridays in Wheelchair. Friday mornings is when we've been having our meetings. Also on the 5th, Mayors and Reads. The 9th, orientation. 10th, Exhibition Park Board meeting. 11th, participated glad that we can start off on the right foot and hopefully continue to grow that relationship between the mayor, myself, and our municipalities. 15th, EDL board meeting, 16th, county council meeting, 17th, meeting with CAO. Also on the 17th, we swore in Councillor Van Essen, and on the 17th, I attended the staff appreciation barbecue. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Anybody have any questions for Tori? If not, then we'll move on to Mark.
Hey. Thank you, Chairman. November 4th was Lethbridge County Council meeting. November 8th, I met with CAO Ann Mitchell. November 9th, Council Orientation Session 1. November 16th, Orientation Session number 2. 18th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. November 23rd to 26th was the RMA Fall Convention. November 29th was Council Orientation Session 3. And November 30th was budget deliberations. December 1st was budget review. December 2nd and 3rd, the Muni 101 course here in Lethbridge. December 6th was Lethbridge County Council meeting. The 7th was budget review. The 16th was Lethbridge County Council meeting. The 17th was a staff appreciation barbecue. And December 20th was the Lethbridge Regional Water Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? If not, let's move on to John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For November 4th was I attended Lethbridge County Council meeting. November 5th, Community Futures Board meeting. November 8th, meeting with the CAO. November 9th, Council Orientation Session. November 12th, Council Update meeting. And November 16th, Council Orientation Session number 2. November 18th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. November 22nd, travel for the RMA convention. November 23rd to 26th, attended the RMA convention. November 29th was another council orientation session. November 30th was budget deliberations. And on to December. December 1st was budget review. December 2nd and 3rd attended Munis 101 course. December 6th was a Lethbridge County Council meeting. December 7th was another budget review meeting. December 14th, Community Futures Board meeting. December 16th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. December 17th, the Staff Appreciation Barbecue. And December 21st was the Lethbridge Regional Water Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions for John? If not, then Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. December 17th, swearing in with the Reeve and the CAO, and December 21st, meeting with the CAO.
Okay, thank you. Then I guess it's my turn. Division 6, November 4th, the Lethbridge County Council meeting. November 11th, Picture Butte Remembrance Day ceremony. The 15th of November, meeting with CEO. 16th, we had a council orientation session. The November 18th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. November 23 to 26, RMA convention, and with that we had the Mayor and Reeves meetings with Alberta, and we had meeting with Alberta Transportation. We had the RCMP Division and the Alberta Environment and Parks. And November 29th, orientation with Council, and November 30 was budget meetings. And going to December. December 1st, a budget meeting. December 3rd, Mayor and Reeves. December 6th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. December 7th, budget review. December 10th, SEWA meeting. And there we kind of had an orientation there too. We traveled up to Wheatland County there, Strathmore, and it was basically an orientation and of about 3.5, 4 hours. And so not a whole lot. Other stuff was discussed there, and apparently we're probably going to have a meeting at the end of this month again. So on December 13th, Lethbridge Regional Waste Committee meeting, and December 16th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. Any questions? Okay, thank you. And Morris.
November the 4th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. November the 8th, meeting with CEO. November the 9th, Council Orientation Session 1. November the 16th, Council Orientation Session 2. November the 18th, Lethbridge County Council meeting, November the 23rd and 26th, RMA Fall Convention, November the 29th, Council Orientation Session 3, and November the 30th, Budget Deliberation. And on December the 1st, Budget Review, December the 6th, Lethbridge County Council meeting, December the 7th, Budget Review, December the 16th, Lethbridge County Council meeting, December the 17th, Staff Appreciation Barbecue.
Okay, thank you, Morris. So any questions for Morris? If not, can I have a mover to accept this as information? John?
I'd like to move that the, well, what do we call it, attendance update for November and December be accepted for information.
Any discussion? Not? Everybody in favor? That's carried. So now we're coming to our closed session, and with that, I would like to have somebody move that we move into a closed session.
I'll move
Lauren?
so.
Everybody in favor? That's carried.